Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. I'm Rita Fucillo, co-publisher.
Put the mic
A little closer? Better? Yeah. I'm very happy to be here talking with you all and want to thank Kathy Waste and Diane Swanson for inviting me. I want to mention that I'm not a presenter. I'm a little nervous, but I am a talker. I will talk fast, Kathy, please don't worry. I'm a storyteller, and I hope to illustrate the points that I want to make this morning through stories and a conversational format. I gave a similar talk a few months ago at the Transcultural Exchange Conference in Boston and asked the group to interject their questions as they came up. It was a really feisty and lively discussion, which I'll share more of in a minute. I was going to suggest that people can just toss out questions as I go, but in the essence of time, we'll maybe just wait till the end. I want to start by sharing a little bit about Art New England and myself. Art New England is 36 years old. It's the region's premier resource for contemporary art and culture. It's distributed via subscriptions, newsstand, and just to add, more than 60% of the newsstand sales track from New York, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, with the fastest growing subscription market being Florida. So thank you, Florida. Art New England is direct mailed to more than 800 arts professionals and institutions every issue, and is distributed at some of the world's most prestigious arts events, including the Art Miami Fairs, at Art Basel Miami, the Armory Show, etc. And to increase our visibility amongst collectors, we're distributed in more than a dozen high-end, hand-selected inns and resorts throughout the region. The traveler represents an affluent, active consumer, cultured, educated, with multiple homes, lots of wall space. Therefore, this list of hotels will continue to grow. And it's effective. In fact, it's one of my very favorite phone calls to receive when an artist or gallerist calls to say, someone from the Delamar Hotel in Greenwich or Southport, or from Top Notch in Stowe, Vermont, or the Taj Hotel in Boston. They just left my studio. They just left my gallery with a piece of art. Art New England's parent company, New Venture Media Group, acquired it 7 years ago, right at the beginning of the recession. Good times. It didn't matter, though. Tim Montgomery, my co-publisher, my co-everything in life, had his eye on the publication for years. And when the previous owner was finally ready to sell, we didn't hesitate. We've had an incredible time with Art New England revamping what needed vamping, and it did. In essence, taking the magazine into the 21st century on every level. I also want to add that New Venture Media Group is a relatively new name for a very old company, a company that's always been a printer. We're the Boston publishers of Playbill magazine and have been since the 60s. We own Theater Bill magazine, which is a Playbill alternative, primarily for not-for-profit performing arts companies. We own Panorama, the official guide to Boston for visitors and residents. And we operate a small theater and travel club, in addition to being custom publishers. In fact, right before we left, our newest project went to press, which is the catalog for the Cape Ann Plein Air Festival happening next month in Cape Ann, Massachusetts, and I did see, as I was proofreading, several members of AWA there. Just a little bit about me. I've always been in print. I grew up running around a printing plant, loving the smell of ink and the hot type machine and the hum of the Kelly presses and the feel of paper. Whether a galley, a book, a term paper as an English major, or a magazine, the power of words and images on a page got me while I was very young. I'm happy to say that I've made a career of putting words and images on paper and that I love every minute of it. Another little thing about me is that I'm personally not drawn to social media. I do not have a Facebook page. If I have a precious hour, I'm going to open a book, not scroll Facebook. I don't tweet, I don't Pinterest or Instagram. Again, on a personal level, interns over the years have rolled their eyes and tried to lure me in, and they rave about the connectivity of it all and how social it all is. It's ironic, I find social media in general to be inherently antisocial. This weekend, and all the different adventures that Tim and I have been on, even before we got here, is social media, networking, talking, exchanging cards. And I have a story to share on that in a minute. In my office, every so often, a colleague will send me a mile-long email about something really important, something that clearly needs to be discussed. I write back and say, if your feet work, please come into my office and talk it out with me. You'll hear me talk about time, reference time, this morning, because there's never enough of it, and I don't want my staff wasting it composing an email when a conversation will resolve the matter in less than half the time. It's an amazing thing to watch. Same thing in sales. Phone calls are the secondary form of communication. What happened? I can't afford my staff to write emails all day. Follow-up emails? Great. But the power of your voice, the tone of your voice, your choice of words, form a connection with whomever you're speaking. And in my opinion, and I can only share my own, that is invaluable. Again, I can't speak for everyone. These are my experiences as a publisher, a sales manager, and the supervisor of several millennials. But I can also tell you that since we acquired the magazine 7 years ago, Art New England has grown steadily. And I'm proud to say that this current September-October issue is our largest to date at 124 pages. So I hope my experience can offer a little insight and inspiration into your own. I also want to mention that both Kathy and Diane inspired a column on gender equality in the art world, and that's in there if you haven't already seen it. When I'm not at my desk in front of a computer, which I am quite frequently, I want to interact with people. I do, however, want to grow all our magazines and cannot ignore the impact that social media has had on advertising decisions as well as a means of communication. My sales team from Art New England and other titles have certainly hit a social media wall in some cases. Many marketing executives, especially those under a certain age, simply say, we're trying something new. We're saving money and trying a social media platform. We recognize the shift. We also recognize the data that shows how social media does not replace print, that a balanced approach is the smartest. We have to advertise too. We buy ad space for some clients and their projects. We promote our publications and other businesses, and we're learning how to ride and adapt to this social media wave. And I can't stress the word adapt enough, which makes us a lot busier than we were a few years ago. Back to the time thing, like you needed another thing to master. I take my hat off to all of you. You manage your time, your money, you market yourselves, you buy art materials, you have to keep your creative juices flowing, support a studio. In many cases, you have to balance that with a day job and a family. You all rock. You are the Ginger Rogers of your profession. Except it's not enough anymore to dance backwards in an evening gown, in high heels, in full makeup. You now have to dance while texting a gallery, emailing a press release to me, and posting your latest exhibit details on Facebook and Instagram. You redefine multitasking, and I applaud you all. I just want to share a few stories that I've already alluded to that I hope will clarify some of the points I'm trying to convey, mainly that social media, both the act of being social while also maintaining a presence on the current social media circuit of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, is the common sense approach right now. And that the old school methods of calling an art magazine, emailing information, and showing your cards, more on that in a minute, are not to be underestimated. Neither is the solidity and the validity of print. And I hope you'll hear a spirit and sense a theme of collaboration through these stories. The art world is unlike any other, and while it is a business, we are all in business. I think success is achieved through acknowledging our ability to work collaboratively, to work and talk together and play to each other's strengths. My first major lesson began when we actually purchased the magazine, cleaned out the offices, and brought part of the team into our office in Boston. I noticed on the previous owner's desk a stack of those while you were out pink notes. Haven't seen those in a while. The stack was big, and the first thing I did was categorize them because they looked sadly unanswered. So there was a stack from subscribers, advertisers, artists, etc. I saved the artists for last and want to share what that experience was like as I went through one by one and tried to introduce my credentials and the company's credentials. The first question, what are you going to do for us? How are you going to help us? Who are you? What credentials do you have to run an art magazine? How do I get reviewed? Why do you cover Boston so much? Stop it. There's a lot happening in the rest of New England, you know. Like, whoa, I was a deer in the headlights, I'll admit. But it was great, and the paralysis was temporary. You all kicked my butt and gave me and the magazine a to-do list, which we took very seriously. As a result, Tim and I determined that there would always be an accessible price point in the magazine, special affordable sections for listings and display, complimentary ad design no matter what, an enhanced artist directory section, seasonal sections, and Tim's brilliant destination section idea that highlights at least one arts region every issue and promotes cultural tourism. The one behind me represents Boston. The writer's feature is comprised of a travel itinerary created by the participants in the section. It's typically at least 6 pages long, some run up to 10, and they appear as a flip book online, which is archived after the issue is over. So our website meets the magazine, meets everything. Excuse me. It's typically, our writer calls each participant so we know exactly what to highlight. Again, collaborating. What's happening for you in that issue span? What specific lecture, book signing, show, demonstration are you a part of? Then we throw an issue launch event in that area, and they are phenomenally successful. Next week, we have more than 200 people coming to the Boston event. If anybody's around, please let me know. We'd love to have you. We bring the Art New England staff, writers, invite everyone from the section, arts businesses from the area, the local tourism council. I think you get the idea. We talk, we exchange ideas, and continue to ask that very original question with those pink notes. How can we be a louder voice for you? Those were my marching orders, which we still follow today. Another example of collaboration happened just the other night, and I want to briefly mention it because I was really struck by this evening. I don't need my glasses for that. Maybe it was a year and a half ago, I received a phone call from the husband of an emerging artist in Darien, Connecticut. She's in her 60s, but she's an emerging artist and truly lovely painter. And she was having a show at the Bellarmine Museum at Fairfield University. And at the same time, the school called as well. And we really liked the story, we really liked the woman, and we said, great, this is a terrific idea for a profile piece. I mean, these are how the ideas happen. We don't just sit in a room and talk amongst ourselves and pick what to do. We rely on people coming to us and phone calls and emails and cards to be our eyes and ears for the region. So we followed Jan's career, and there's actually a continuation of that column in this issue. But we got a call a couple months ago saying, we need to do more, we want to do more. What do you think about a small marketing event where, I don't even think he used the word marketing, but I want to get people in a room talking about what work they're doing, how they're doing it, where they're doing it, and who do you think that we could invite? So we put a list of gallerists, artists, a few artist representatives, and several came from Massachusetts. And there was a group of about 50 people in the Dylan Schneider living room this past Thursday night. And clearly, they are a family of means with yet exactly the same goals and aspirations as the woman on our cover. And her name is Patrice Barrett, and she's part of the Nest Arts Factory in Bridgeport, Connecticut. And this to her, we just found her through our artist directory and were struck by her piece and how it related to a rather political tone in some of our past issues. She never expected to end up on the cover, it just happened. We go crazy with our covers, we only have 6 precious covers a year. But Patrice was at the event. And I was struck by watching everybody talk and exchange cards and ideas, and it didn't matter whether you were from Darien, Connecticut or Bridgeport, Connecticut. Everybody wanted the same thing. Everybody's goals were the same. The artists were helping the artists. The artist reps were giving out advice. I think a painting or 2 was actually sold that night, and for 2.5 hours, maybe 3, the talking and the networking and a few select fun Instagram posts afterwards put together what I thought was a really beautiful evening. Another spontaneous but powerful example of collaborative marketing and social marketing. The other story that I think illustrates my point began at the Transcultural Exchange Conference, which happens every 2 years in Boston. This was at BU. I was asked to talk about how an artist should market themselves these days and what particularly gets Art New England's attention. It was an incredible afternoon. We discussed what modes of communication work best and what is the right amount of saturation. That was a great question because calling and emailing every week is not the best idea. We talked about what I look for in a press release. Do I care if it's homemade and not professionally designed? God, no. I would never punish an artist for a casual press release. We discussed marketing budgets, or the lack thereof, and still, what does one do? How to spend money wisely, how to effectively and economically market yourself today. Is an artist rep worth the money? Yes, in some cases, most definitely, depending on what your particular goals might be. I was also asked what approach makes the biggest impression on me. And it was a tough question, but a great one. I liked the fact that that group showed up, and we had 50 people or so huddled around. They were serious about taking the next steps and were very serious artists. I talked about the 1, 2, 3 punch when it comes to sharing a press release: call, follow up with an email, and mail me something. Remember, I like paper. I open all my mail, and my entire staff opens every single solitary piece of mail. Again, there's just no way we can possibly cover 6 states without hearing directly from you. The emails go into 3 different persons' computers. We collaborate on this every single week. We cover as many events as we possibly can. The mileage on my car, I'm afraid to turn in the lease. I think we're going to buy the car because I'm afraid of the overage and the miles. Little aside there. And while not every mode of outreach can be responded to in a perfect, timely fashion, we're improving and all efforts are being made by our staff. I'm also asked, what does Art New England do with the cards it receives? Those beautiful 4x6 cards that you create, or the business cards, you have a show coming up, or maybe it's just describing who you are, where your studio is. We keep them, and if you saw my office, you would understand that I keep them. They are a timeline of what's happening in New England. You have spent your money, your design time, money for postage. This is an expression of yourself. There is no way that they are being thrown out or recycled. They are appreciated. They are categorized by what issue it might relate to. Has this recently passed? Can we give any information to something that's just ended? Is it at a gallery that we work with, and can we integrate it into something else that we're doing? Is it 6 months in advance? Great, we have some lead time. Things spark ideas. I had a phone call not too long ago from a place I'd never heard of on Cape Cod in Orleans. And it was a lovely woman saying, "Hi, we have just opened a small gallery on our campus, and we're the Community of Jesus, and we have our first show coming up, and would very much like, to have an exhibition listing." And I said, "Terrific, this is wonderful. I learn something new every day. I hadn't even known that this place existed." The issue came out, they had a good turnout, they called again and said, "Well, we have a workshop. We have another show coming up. And if you happen to be on Cape Cod for on this particular weekend, would love to see you." Well, it just so happened we were celebrating Art New England's Cape Cod party in P-Town and could hit Orleans on the way down. So whereas a few months ago I had no idea that this place even existed, Tim and I drove on to the most exquisitely beautiful, tranquil campus and a basilica that had taken more than 10 years to create. And the artwork, I could go on and on about it, and I know that I won't in the interest of time. But the point is, this gallery sparked a conversation. And we met with our team, and we were just blown away by what we had seen. And then my contributing editor, Sarah, said, "Wow, this reminds me of something I read about Grace Farms in Connecticut and that incredible synagogue in Portland. And why is there art in a mosque?" And it started this conversation about religious and spiritual art, which is a feature in November, December, which was triggered by someone calling me saying, "We'd like to buy an exhibition listing." This is where the content comes from, and I thought that was a great example. Let me find where I was. So again, this is invaluable when you're trying to cover 6 states and need eyes and ears in every corner of New England. So back to the original story, which was the Transcultural Conference Exchange. We're back and forthing. The thing went over. I took the group into an empty classroom. We continued the conversation. These people were terrific. I had tons of ideas. The day was great. Conferences are like that. They get all your thoughts going. The trick is, how do you keep that momentum and energy going afterwards? So I'm riding the high. I get back to the office. I share it all with Tim. I'm like, "We're going to do this. We're going to do that. This person's doing this. There was a woman from China, and she's interested in this residency thing." And oh my God, and I took all these notes. I woke up the next day, and I crashed. Boom. Flat. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? Because now everybody that I just spoke with, I have to live up to. They're going to go out and do what I'm encouraging them to do, and how am I going to respond? I mean, I was overwhelmed before, but now I've really put it out there. And I went from soaring heights to woeful inadequacy so quickly. And it was just very sobering. So again, I'm like, what do we do? You get the team together, and my editorial assistant's job description grew by about a foot that day. She's a millennial. She's an old soul, though. She's pretty awesome, and she does come into my office and talk to me when she has a question. But we got her opinion, too, because she's of that very social media age, and she brought a lot to the conversation. And we came up with something, and if I press the wrong button, I only have 5 slides, but I just wanted to illustrate how my panic sparked a social media success story in our office called Show Your Cards. So those things that you're mailing me, those cards that I got at the end of that conference that day, we've turned into Facebook posts on a weekly basis, and that's blossoming. So there's one, and I do have I brought stats and statistics and what kind of hits we get and how they're shared and the demographics, and I can share all that later. It's just something that allowed us to respond with some immediacy, and it covers more ground, and it made me feel a little bit better about myself. but it's also sparking new ideas of how we can integrate social media into our marketing of what you do. And this has nothing to do with advertising. This has something to do with simply supporting the arts community, because it's a very symbiotic relationship. When you succeed, we succeed, and vice versa. If my platform is successful and helps you get people into a show or buy work or whatever, then I stay strong, my ad sales stay strong, I have more pages that I can write about the art that you're out there making. So it's one big, beautiful cycle. So Olivia's lovely slide here in her commentary, this is Show Your Cards this week, University Galleries. We also have a great website that we're continuing to improve. We have a blog. I'm not as fond of the word blog. We call it portfolio. I feel like your work deserves to have that word. Our writers' words deserve to have that word. And this is an announcement to direct people to our portfolio. Again, we can't cover everything in a timely fashion. This allows us to get more hits on our website. Everything is immediately shared. And it becomes a little bit of a love fest. So Show Your Cards works in a couple of ways. You send us your cards that make the announcements. We post it strategically. Then, the other way that it works, if we were to say meet at an artist's symposium, and you handed me a card for a show that you have coming up in New England, we'd share that story as well. My art director was in an Uber a couple of weeks ago, and she did one of those shared rides, and her car mate was an artist. I don't even know how they got to talking about art, and then that becomes a little bit of a conversation. Art New England was in a cab or in an Uber, and this happened, and this artist is showing here. Or Art New England was at the American Women Artists Symposium, and Judy Crow from Texas is having a show in New England. I got the card, it's coming up. It's relaying that spontaneity, that spontaneous connection in a fun way. And that's where social media really serves us and complements things very well. So, Olivia's comments she wanted me to share, since she does handle the social media end of it. She feels that we post less frequently than certain publications who have a similar following on Facebook. But we feel we're still at a point of growth and development in our social media program and don't want to overwhelm or confuse our followers with too much unfocused content, thus risking people unsubscribing from our posts, and that is a concern. We want our posts to be interesting, well-crafted, and of service to the followers. So the first slide was Show Your Cards. We post once per week with 2 to 4 exhibition cards. We tag the galleries and artists mentioned wherever they have a Facebook profile, so our followers can click through directly to explore their content, and the galleries receive a notification that we're also posting about them. So this one is a slide that simply shares our own web content. We have 1 or 2 posts per week with a link to portfolio, a review, or other content. It could be an editorial, calendar event, etc. This is a slide that picks up a review in this current issue. The ways our page followers interact with Art New England on Facebook, the obvious, they can like and share our posts. This spreads awareness of the magazine among their friends, ripple effect in the reach of posts, and is great feedback for us to know that people are enjoying our content during their leisure time on Facebook and are interested in what we do. Artists or galleries written about in reviews or other editorial often share posts letting their own friends and followers know that they're featured in Art New England. Again, another example of connectivity and collaboration. Some posts mention Art New England's involvement or the involvement of our staff to add clout to their own organization. Whether or not we're actual sponsors, this is a good sign, as it shows people respect us as an arts publication and are happy to have our support and involvement. This attitude is seen by their followers, and again, a ripple effect in terms of awareness. can't even read this with my glasses, to be totally honest with you. But to expand upon what it was, DDC is pleased to be joined today by contributing editor of Art New England, Sarah Baker, for the first rehearsal with season 2 choreographer Alyssa Cardone. And ways our advertisers interact with Art New England on Facebook. Some are proud of their ads, that they take a picture, they share it. It's also a good sign, as it means that our advertisers are proud the way their ad looks in the publication and that they believe in the power of Art New England for promoting their product. Many of these people link to Art New England's Facebook page. I have other information about age and things like that, and we can certainly talk about that later. So we talked about portfolio. So needless to say, I've recovered from my experience at the Transcultural Exchange Conference. I'm feeling a little bit better about how we're responding to things and what we're doing on our end to improve this symbiotic relationship, which allowed me to accept your invitation to do this today without being terrified. In summary, there's no magical formula or recipe for success. I think the ingredient list certainly got longer thanks to social media, which means we're all juggling more. So life is a little more challenging. It's harder to keep content fresh and relevant and consistent. We face the same challenge as you. Our relevance is connected to your relevance, hence the collaboration, the shared quest for that right balance of social media, print, event marketing, personal pounding of the pavement. The right balance is different for everyone. You stay honest, on track, do your best. That's what we attempt. We also attempt to provide you with the solidity and validity of print in a readable, colorful, current, informative format that does extend to the website. The entire magazine is not on the website, or else I think my subscription rate would fall drastically. But in 2017, we are talking about adding online subscriptions. But the blog and social media has allowed us to create more content without running the risk of losing any subscribers. In fact, we're finding that the opposite effect is happening, and people are more intrigued by what we're posting, which hopefully leads to them wanting to have the magazine on a regular basis. And while I'm happy I'm not publishing a newspaper these days, I think that field is very, very tough. Niche marketing is strong, and I say that to you with confidence. Magazine subscriptions are on the rise in certain age demographics. Neuroscientific studies are showing print content carries a greater mental retention than social media ad content. And it's so funny to read some of these white papers now, like as if we didn't know it, as if we've forgotten it. I don't know, it's funny. Sometimes I feel like I just don't relate as well to that particular generation, but people are coming back and saying, wow, you really do learn more from a book. I'm like, yeah, didn't we know this? So I search for this information frequently because it is important to keep reminding people that it exists, and it's been very constant. So we're simply going to keep doing what we do and try to do a better job of it. The better we do, we feel the more time you have to do your job, which is to make the art that we write about. And for all the New England artists in the room, or any artist that has something happening in New England, please show me your cards. And thank you very much for having me today.